Have you ever felt like your grief was too much? Or maybe you're grieving something that you don't want to talk about for fear of people judging you. There are so many things out there that we grieve. Maybe people told you you should get over your grief, or you should be moving through this already, or maybe you're grieving for something that is still here on this earth. There are many forms of grief, and I'm going to dispel a few of them for you. If you have questions, let's discuss this further. So, for those of you who are new here, my name is Lisa. I'm an international evidential psychic medium. What that means is I bring in evidence-based information from the spirit world to bring through your loved ones from the other side. I'm also an energy healer and a grief specialist. What that means is I connect you with your loved ones and help you to be able to receive messages. I'm able to be the bridge to help you bridge the gap between here and the spirit world. I want to be able to help dispel some of the myths that are out there where people are being told that they should be over their grief, that maybe you're grieving a relationship that's ended, or maybe you're grieving the loss of a job. And I'm going to touch on just a few things here, so let's get into it. Okay, so now that we know who I am, what I do, I want to know who you are and what you do. What are you grieving? There are so many things out there that we grieve. The list is endless. You could be grieving loss of trust. You could be grieving the loss of a relationship, like I said, a friendship. You could be grieving a sibling, a parent, a grandparent, a spouse, a child. There are so many losses. You could be grieving a pet. I have a little puppy right here who's my little emotional support puppy. Her name is Penny, and I call her Penny from Heaven. Penny, do you want to say hello to everyone? Penny, this is Penny from Heaven. Penny from Heaven. Are you my little Penny from Heaven? Yes. I was grieving at a time when little Penny from Heaven here came into my world. I wasn't even looking for a dog, and literally the multiverse brought her for me. We grieve in many different ways, and what I'm learning is one way is just not the be-all, do-all, and there are many different ways that we process grief, but most people don't talk about it. They try to trudge along being positive and just being okay with where they are, when what happens with that grief, it compounds and it gets harder and harder to process and deal with. Over time, if you don't deal with this grief, what'll happen is different things will happen in your life where you'll actually not be able to process them because you'll have a literal meltdown of where you are in your life because you have squashed this grief, and it comes in many different forms. Some people will overeat, some people will overstress, some people will play the shame game, the guilt game. There are so many different ways that grief shows up, and there are many different processes of it. Now, Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who I'm a big fan of, wrote on death and dying, and she talks about the 5 stages of grief. Now, the 5 stages of grief are totally different than the things that you process and the feelings you feel during those 5 stages of grief. And they are not the be-all, end-all. And as an evidential psychic medium, over the years, I've always been developing mediumship, teaching others how to connect with the spirit world, helping people to heal with spiritual wellness and well-being. And what I've learned out of all these experiences is that I'm really helping people process the grieving of their entire life. And it might come in one form or another, but at some point they are ready to process that. And those who are ready and have an emotional healing session with me, or a multifaceted message reading with me, their lives are transformed for the better. I have so many testimonials of people that are like, this has greatly helped me. I have a few in particular that I can think of, and I'll share 3 that just make so much sense. One, I had a beautiful soul who had lost her child. She was a hair client of mine. So I used to be a hair designer by trade. Actually, her daughter was a hair client of mine. Began to know her through that. We set up a reading. I did not know who had passed in her life. We did a reading and her son came through. And the way he came through, the messages that were brought through, it was evidence-based, where I was shown her son being held by the hands of God or Jesus. And when I shared this with her, she was in awe, absolutely amazed, because she too had had a dream where God or Jesus had showed her that he was holding her son. So this was evidence-based validation that let her know without a doubt that I had her son with me. And that helped her to experience healing through a multifaceted message reading with me, which is a one-to-one session that I do, a private reading for you. And it's an hour long. And sometimes I use cards, sometimes I use mediumship, sometimes we use both. Every reading is different depending on what the person needs. And the spirit world always gives us what we need. Sometimes we don't know what we need. Oftentimes, if someone's in deep grief, I will suggest to them have an energy healing session. So in an energy healing session, you could be grieving anything. You could be grieving the relationship that ended. You could be grieving leaving a job. You could just be grieving stress that has compiled and compiled in your life. And it's just packed on all this heavy weight on our shoulders where we tend to carry a lot of this. And what happens with that is when we constantly hold on to that, it's hard to let that go. And we process a lot differently. But a client came to me and she was going through a difficult time in her life. And I said, we had already done a reading. And I said, maybe the next step would be a healing session for you. Why don't you think about having an aromatic energy healing session? This is something I do in person, but I also do energy healing online as well. And we just customize it for the client and what they're going through and how I can best support them. So with this client, we ended up doing the session. Basically, I don't say too much. I just let the energy flow. We use some certain essential oils. I use a lot of energy healing, trance work from the spirit world, and spirit works their magic. I am just the vehicle for them to move the energy through. And what's really cool about that, after the session, she was in a pretty bad state when we started. She was like, oh my God. I walked in the door. I hugged her. I said, how you doing today? And she's like, I just feel like all I want to do is cry. I can't stop crying. I'm so emotional. And that's totally normal. So who do you talk to about that when you are grieving? Most people don't want to go to a therapist because talk therapy is heavy. It doesn't feel good to regurgitate what's going on in your life, because the more you regurgitate that and have to share it with another person, like sometimes we share our experiences with other people. And what I find is, I don't want to say they try to one up you, but they're like, oh, it could always have been like this, or they try to make it better for you because they're fixers and they're trying to fix what you're going through. But what they're actually doing is belittling your experience, and they don't even realize it. And that's really painful when you're in an experience where maybe you've lost a loved one, or maybe someone's left your life, and people are saying, well, you just have to get over it and move on. How do you get over that? How do you get over that grief? So I said to this person, you know what? I want to just best support you. Let's set an intention. We'll pull a few cards. I pull certain cards that are my healing cards that I work with, specifically with the angels. We pulled some cards to gain some clarity for her to have her experience. We did the experience, and afterwards, she was like, oh my God. Oh, I just feel so relaxed. Like, I don't know that I'm healed or anything like that, but I feel like I have clarity, she said. And I feel like I can just see things from a different perspective. And I feel like I just know I'm going to be okay. Like, I have to go through this experience, but it was like I could see things differently from a different perspective. And I just know I'm going to be all right. And I know I'm going to keep doing the work. And I just can't thank you enough for how much better I feel, because I haven't felt this good in weeks. And I'm like, wow. And then I met with her this morning to give her one of my journals that I created, because I said to her, she was looking for a journal. And I said, oh, I have one of those. And you know what? Let me share that with you. So if anyone's interested in a journal to write to the spirit world or to connect with them, I have a beautiful one that you might like. But what I did was I gifted this journal to her, and I brought it over. We connected, and I said, how are you feeling today? And she said, oh my God. Like I said yesterday, I'm not healed, but I feel like I'm well on my way, and I just feel so much better than I have in weeks. And I'm like, wow. She's like, this is like grief healing, and you completely helped me to heal. And I'm like, oh my God, that is so amazing, because that's really what I ask to be of service every single day is, how can I help someone? Who can I help? How can I serve? And I call that hope. So it's helping one person every day. And that is really my mission in life, is to help one person every day. If I can help many more, even better. So I wanted to make this video for people who are really struggling with where you're going, what you're going through, that you are not alone, and grief is a process that we have to feel in order to heal. But there's ways to go about it where you do not have to feel guilty, where you do not have to feel shame, where you do not have to feel wrong in feeling the way you feel. So it's important for us to embrace our emotions, and it's important to come from a place of the heart that feels right. Do you need a reading? I don't know. Do you need a healing session? I don't know. Do you need grief work? I don't know. Only you will know that. I'm just a guide that can help facilitate that for you. You ultimately have to make that decision. What I like to share are different solutions that could support you. If you see value in any of that, smash the like button right now and make sure you hit the notification bell, because I'm going to be sharing some more videos like this. And I just wanted to dispel some of these myths. So I'm going to share one more, and this other one is really powerful. So it's going to dispel some myths about the church. This may ruffle some feathers here. I'm going to say this whether you like it or not. I have a big statue over here of Jesus. I truly believe he is who allows us to make all this possible. He is my man. I believe that, it is through the work of God that I'm able to stand here and use my voice, use my hands to heal, and use my heart to connect with others in a beautiful way that touches their soul and hopefully brings them to a place that's lighter than when they came, is empowering to them and supportive. And one of the things I really want to share from this story is that even skeptics can be believers. Let me preface this. So I was doing a group of readings for 3 ladies. This is a few years back. I was doing readings. I came in, I shared my group spiel, told everybody how I work and all that. And then I took people privately for readings into a different room. I did the 2 people that were there, and there was one on the way. She was a little late. So I thought, well, I'll just talk to her later when she gets here. Meanwhile, she got here, but she was scared to death. Like literally scared to death. It's because of her belief system that she was so fearful, which was so interesting to me because I grew up Catholic, but I've always heard too that, you're not supposed to work with mediums and you're supposed to talk to God and the priests and the nuns. And okay, that's great. But what if I want to talk to the spirit world? What is so wrong with that? If it helps someone to heal, that doesn't make sense to me. So I'm not trying to change anyone's belief. I'm just literally here to share what I've found from my personal experience and what my clients have found from their own personal experiences. These are testimonials. This client sat down. We sat on this couch. At first I hugged her and she was like, I said, do you have any questions? Because you missed the beginning. So I'm going to explain how I work. So I shared that. And I said, do you have any questions? And she said, I'm a little nervous about this whole experience. And I said, listen, there is nothing to be fearful about. First of all, everything that I'm going to bring through is going to be of light and love, and it's going to come from a higher space. So nothing negative is going to come in. I'm not going to tell you about anybody leaving this planet. That's not how this works. And what we ended up doing was this beautiful reading that completely touched her heart. She broke out in tears, which to me, I don't like to make people cry, but I know when people cry, especially when it touches that nerve of the heart, it's a connection you can't explain. And you know that you've reached them. And also the evidence that came through, evidence-based mediumship. That is what I do. And evidence-based is like science-based. Like you can't make that up. It's evidence that there's no way I could know. I did not know this woman from Adam. I did not receive any information from anyone else. She literally came in. I had been with the other 2 ladies. As soon as they left, I went to her. Never saw her before in my life. Did the reading, brought through incredible information and evidence that she was able to validate, and was like, how the hell would you know that? I'm like, I'm telling you what I hear. Like I hear spirit, I see them, I feel them, I sense them, and I know things. I'm made aware. With that being said, when we were all finished, I was like, okay, what was your experience? I always love to hear people's experience afterwards. So I said, please share your experience. And she said, I don't even know how to say this. She was like, I just am in such awe because I am a Eucharistic minister at a church. And she said, we're always taught that this is not the work we're to do. And I'm not even supposed to be into this, but I lost my person and I wanted to have a connection. I heard about you and I wanted to come and have this done. You brought through such evidence that no one could know. I mean, without a doubt, you brought this wonderful evidence through, but you also showed me as a Eucharistic minister who was a complete skeptic that I can believe in something that is so real, because there's no way you could make this up. So you've definitely turned me into a believer. And I was like, wow, because I had no idea she was that skeptical. And honestly, I don't like reading for skeptics. However, how do you get better unless you keep doing the work you're doing? So years ago, when I used to do readings, I would get a lot of people who would kind of come in with their arms crossed, like they really weren't there for a reading. They were there to prove a point that someone made them go. They are not my people. So I am not for people who are looking to show up and not receive information. If you're coming to me, you're going to get some kind of healing, whether it's through an energy healing session or a reading, but you have to be open to it. This woman was open, even though she was skeptical, which is completely normal. And I highly recommend that you do that, because there are a lot of people out there claiming to be mediums who maybe are not of the highest and best good. Always go to a reputable medium. You do not have to come to me. There are a million of us out there. So many are doing great work, but there are so many who, if it doesn't feel good in your heart, run like hell. You know, like I want you to my whole mission in life is to help you feel better, to empower you, to inspire you, and to help you leave uplifted and lighter than when you came to me. That is my goal, that you feel like you spent the afternoon with the spirit world, whether you had the healing session and they worked through me on you, or you connected with the loved one in spirit. So I just wanted to share those 3 points. I think it's really important that you know that the grieving process of whatever it is that you have lost, there are tools out there, there are techniques you can use, there are different processes you can use. You're not weird, you're not alone, and there is nothing wrong with you if you are grieving. You might be grieving for years. You might have stuffed all that down for so long because you felt shameful. You felt weird, or maybe you felt like a failure because this person passed, or this person left your life, or they broke your trust, or a job ended. Like, that's a big loss. And I'm going to share with you one last thing. I left a thriving hair salon business, and I can't tell you how hard it was to transition from that's who I was my entire life, this hairdresser. That's just who I was. And when you transition into becoming a medium and energy healer, it wasn't a smooth transition. It took years to get where I'm at and to be doing what I'm doing. And the thing is, a lot of that time, there was a lot of doubt and fear. And I don't want to say shame, but almost like people would make me feel bad that I should go back to doing what I was doing because I made more money then. Well, you know what? I'm doing what I love and I'm making money now, but it took a long time to get to that point, is what I'm trying to say. Never let anyone make you feel less than, ever, okay? And know that grief is a process that you have to grow through. And there are people like myself, like others out there who are of like mind and like spirit and like soul. We have good hearts. We are compassionate friends. We want to support you. Find people like that and surround yourself with communities like that. If you need a community to support you and uplift you and connect with, and maybe you want to learn to connect with the spirit world or learn about energy healing, I have a community and a school that teaches that. So I will put the information in the description below. And if you have questions, let me know. Let me know in the comments. Let's take this conversation further. And if you're interested in learning more about developing your gifts and abilities, or maybe you want to see my next video, make sure you hit subscribe and check out either this video somewhere on the screen, or I will put it in the next video in the description. All right, take care, brush your hair, stay uplifted with the spirit world and grounded in love. Peace out.